Good meowing guys, gals, MBs, and YouTube catters. Well, it's a brand new year and we decided to start it off on a high note. If you've seen my post on YouTube, if you are part of the Discord, or if you follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, you might have seen this weekend that I took down the first tournament of the brand new year with pure White Forest. I know it's been a long time since we put out a deck guide for White Forest. I have not been off of the deck or anything like that. Quite the opposite. Have been playing so many versions of this list, trying to find what works for the current meta, because I personally think that if Droll and Lockbird didn't exist, obviously, if Droll and Lockbird wasn't so prevalent, White Forest would be one of the top decks in the format. It's very well positioned in this format, having good matchups against the top deck right now being Draco Tail. I'm going to start the video off talking a little bit about why I settled on this version of White Forest. If you would like to skip that little mini discussion, you can go to the timestamp down below and just go to the deck list if you're just here to see that. And then after I go through the deck and extra deck, I'm going to go through the side deck, siding patterns. As always, before we get into the video, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that I need to cover in a future video, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're there, give it a like, subscribe, especially if this video helped you, or if you found this video good, interesting, all that good YouTube stuff. So grab yourself a snack, buckle up, because this one is going to be a long one. This one's going to be quite an in-depth discussion of a White Forest for the TCG. So to start with, I chose to play a hand trap version of White Forest. And this decision honestly came with playing and grinding a lot of Master Duel games. It's not like Master Duel was the only thing I played. I've tested so many versions of White Forest. It's why there hasn't really been a White Forest video in a while, is because I've been trying to figure out every which way to make this deck work. I've tried the board breaker version. I've tried a toy version of the deck just so we could like play some more hand traps, but also have like a ton of engine to play through interruptions and play through boards. And I've also tried like mixtures and hybrids of the two, of like some board breakers, some hand traps, things like that. And honestly, this is the version I've settled on most. Obviously, Master Duel and TCG are very different. I'm not saying like because this deck did well in Master Duel, it did well in the TCG. They're completely different formats, completely different ban lists, have access to completely different cards. But it honestly sparked the idea because in the Master Duel version of White Forest, you play at least 10 to 12 hand traps, because you have to play Max Seas at 2. You have to play Ash Blossom for Max Seas and Molcharmy Fullolos. So you have to play Molcharmy Fullolos at 3. That's already 8 hand traps right there. Plus you have to play Droll and Lockbird for enemy decks and cross out in your main deck calling Droll and Lockbird. So that is exactly 10 hand traps already. And White Forest is actually still pretty consistent with opening spells and traps in the Master Duel scenario. I also believe that in this current format in the TCG, playing just a board breaker version of the deck without interacting with your opponent during their turn whatsoever doesn't leave you much chance to win the game. Like if you're like your only hand trap is just Molcharmy Fullolos, and you're hoping to just like draw into a Dark Ruler no more, draw into an evenly matched, draw into some sort of board breaker for going second. The decks that we're playing against in the TCG, first of all, have such layered interaction with back row like Draco Tail. And then other decks like K9 Vanquish Soul just play from the hand during your turn, so board breakers don't really do anything to them as well. So without further ado, I know I've yapped a lot. Let's get to the deck list. This is exactly 40 cards. I'm gonna also talk about some of the cuts and changes to make it 40 and why some of the ratios are the way they are. Because so I will be honest, some of them are a little strange and some of them you will raise an eyebrow at. But first and foremost, the easy stuff is triple LZ, triple Sylvie. This is fairly standard. Because Droll is so prevalent, we still have to play the one as Stellar. And we are on the one as a LZ. You don't need any more than this. This is all standard ratios for White Forest. This should be your like beginning building blocks for the deck. For our Diabell package, we are obviously on the one Diabell's White Witch, one Diabell Star Vengeance, and the one Black Witch. Again, this is all standard ratios. Then we are on 3 Witch of the White Forest. I've seen some people cut down a Witch to 2. I think this is the best one card starter in the deck, even with the Dark Lock. In a hand where you open 4 hand traps, this is your one card starter. This is your one starter. You go Witch, search LZ, LZ send Witch, add Sylvie, normal Sylvie, and now you have full White Forest combo. For the rest of the White Forest spells and traps, we are on the 1 Tails, the 1 Woes, and the 1 Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. So one question I got in the YouTube post that I said I would answer would be, is Woes cuttable? And it really depends on how much you want to play around a Droll, or what kind of board you want to make through Droll. Because Droll is so prevalent in the format, especially in games 2 and 3, most decks at this point are just siding them in, going games 2 and 3. Woes has to be your first search, unless you absolutely have no other access to a White Forest monster. Like say you start Sylvie and you have no access to a Witch or Tails. If you are adding a monster, like say you opened LZ plus Witch or LZ plus Tails, then your LZ search is always going to be the Diabels. Okay, this is probably the most controversial one. We are only on 2 Wanted. Now, this was probably the hardest cut of the deck. These at multiple are just dead in your hand. Like, it's good as a starter with Diabel Star and going into Chorozo lines. It's good to recycle a card back and draw a card. But honestly, after playing a lot of Master Duel and looking at a lot of OCG lists where they only have access to 1 Wanted, and they're still putting up great results with White Forest and still competitively viable with White Forest, honestly, the 3rd Wanted is not really needed. If you're concerned about this ratio, I definitely would suggest just playing it, taking a week and playing it at your locals and seeing how it feels for you. But honestly, I never missed the 3rd Wanted. Games now in Yu-Gi-Oh are so fast, there's not really a whole lot of, especially with White Forest, you're not grinding your opponent out. If you are going full combo and banishing your Wanted, shuffle back your Deception just to draw a card, to draw into a hand trap or something like that, you're making full White Forest board. And if you're making full White Forest board, then you are winning the game, basically. It is extremely difficult to play through full White Forest board with all the different and layered interaction that we have. And if you're playing a bunch of Mulcharmies, your opponent is letting you draw cards and just playing through the Mulcharmy, you want to see your board breakers, or you want to see your other interruptions more than you want to see the 3rd Wanted that just will rot in your hand. Then we are on the Deception of Sinful Spoils, Azamina Debtors, and the Hallowed Azamina. And then the last Sinful Spoils is Sinful Spoils Betrayal Silvera. I've already talked about Silvera in multiple videos. This was the trap that I landed on the most. Playtesting this deck, even while people were still on Morian, Silvera is so good at protecting your end boards through enemy board breakers. It also protects your Deception combos, like your Hallowed combos. The main reason why Debtors is in the main board is because we are still on the 3 Witch. If we open just Witch starter, and we have to lock ourselves early before getting access to the Azamina stuff, this lets us get access to the Azamina stuff during our opponent's turn. To wrap up the engine, we are on the Curse and the Filia Diabel. Again, standard stuff for the Diabel package. Diabel package is the strongest part of this deck, I'll be perfectly honest. And then it's time for the non-engine. So we talked about it earlier. We are on 3 Mulcharmy Fuwalos, 3 Ash Blossom. Now, Ash Blossom is the weakest hand trap in the format right now. The Ash Blossoms are here for enemy Mulcharmies. Now, we don't have Max C in the format, so the next best thing we have is Mulcharmy Perulia for the main. And then our final hand trap is 2 Droll and Lockbirds. So 10 hand traps in total, which is not bad. The only change I would make is if I was going to like a higher level tournament, like a regionals or nationals in this current format, I would probably move the Drolls to the sideboard and put in 2 Ghost Bells, put in the 2 Ghost Bells in the main out of the side. Right now I'm just siding in 2 Ghost Bells, but this is like the biggest switch that I'm going back and forth on. Like if I'm expecting to see a lot more Yummy and a lot more Draco Tail, then these go back into the sideboard. For the rest of the non-engine, we are on a 2 Forbidden Droplet, Reason why we're on Forbidden Droplet is because we need a card to draw into our Mulcharmies to break our opponent's board going second. Most decks that don't need spells and traps just use Nibiru in this slot, and honestly it felt pretty good. Especially if you draw like 3-4 cards with Fuelos. I think the least amount I drew was 2 cards with Fuelos, but as long as you get to draw a couple of cards with Fuelos, you have plenty of material to send for Droplet. You can go draw phase, wanted, chain Droplet, and then Droplet send like a goat and a monster, like an extra Mulcharmy or something that you don't need, an extra hand trap that you don't need that you drew into, and negate their whole board. Then we are on the 1 Called by the Grave for Droll, the 1 Triple Tactics Talent, and then we are on the 1 Black Goat Laughs because we need more traps in the deck. And because this is a good send off of Droplet or off of Elzette or Diabel's or Diabel Star the Black Witch. For the extra deck, I mean, it's a very standard extra deck. Poplar, Herald of the Arclight. I can't wait till this card is banned. We made it a couple of times to floodgate our opponent. The Resilia, Silvera, and Diabel. This is all pretty standard. You want every White Forest name. And Herald is, like I said, hopefully it gets banned because I'm excited to run Zapper Shrimp again, I'll be honest, or the new Chainbound Dragon. To round off our synchros, we're on Chaos Angel and Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon. Chaos Angel is the best 10 that we have access to, and then Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon is obviously Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon. Then we're on Chorozo. A lot of people cut this card. I can never cut this card. This card is consistency. This card just unbricks all of our hands. If we open just Wanted or Diabel Star as our starter, then we can still have access to our White Force combo through Chorozo. For Azamina names, we are on the Illa Sylvia, the Murcielago, and the Moa Regina, and the Saint. Then we are on Snake Eyes Doom Dragon. I finally got my own copy of Snake Eyes Doom Dragon, and after playing it in Master Duel, I was like, wait, this card is actually insane. I used to be Doom Dragon's biggest hater, but this card is so good in breaking boards when we get to go Diabel Star Vengeance, summon Poplar set 2 in the Spell Trap card zone, make a Doom Dragon push a monster like in the Dracotel matchup, and then go Poplar with Doom Dragon into Vengeance Dragon, and then you're just free to kill your opponent from there. Guardian Chimera, because we need a target for Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. Honestly, that's the only reason why it's here. The removal is still pretty good, and the draw 2, pop 1, or pop 2, draw 1 is still pretty decent in this format, especially in like yummy matchups where all you want to do is just keep the yummies off the board so they can't special from hand or go into a snatchy. And then finally SP Little Knight, because SP Little Knight, that was the deck list. If you were just watching this video for the deck list, thank you for watching this much at least, and I hope you enjoyed the video or stick around to watch the rest of the video. Next, I'm going to talk about the side deck and siding patterns for this deck. In the side deck, we have the 2 Ghost Spell that I talked about in the deck list, where these could easily be in the main for the 2 Drolls. I could even see a 3rd Ghost Spell being in the side. Ghost Spell is so good in this format, especially if you're seeing a lot of Dracotel or a lot of Yummy. For right now, I am on the 3rd copy of Mulcharmy Perulia in the side. Then we are on 2 Triple Tactics Thrust. This is coming in always for games 2 and 3. Thrust to go to search out our board breakers, or if we are going guaranteed first, Thrust gets boarded in for some of our hand traps to search out some of our turn skip cards. The board breakers we're searching with Thrust are 2 Dark Hole. For the rest of the board breakers, we are on 2 Dark Ruler No More and the 1 Harpious Feather Duster, all searchable with Thrust. And then the 1 extra Black Goat Laughs that I talked about earlier. Thrust can also search out our turn skip, which is Different Dimension Ground. Yay! A lot of decks currently right now play through their graveyard. So Different Dimension Ground is one of the best normal traps that you can search to turn skip your opponent when you're guaranteed going first, currently in this format. Then for our last 3 slots, we are on the 1 Crossout for games 2 and 3. We are siding in Crossout when going second, because basically if opponent goes full combo and last card in hand is a Droll, we still just lose. And our last 2 cards, Scourge of the White Forest for guaranteed going first, as another back row negate to set up our layered interaction. And then our last card is Anti-Spell Fragrance. We open it against decks like Dracotail or Mitsu. It kind of just like turn skips them as well because they won't be able to activate prayers or ritual during their turn. Okay, siding patterns for guaranteed going first, depending on the matchup, obviously, but we are always bringing in at least both thrusts, the Scourge of the White Forest, the Crossout. And then really depending on the matchup, like if they're a deck that plays through the graveyard, then we bring in different Dimension Ground. If it's like Yummies that they're revolved around one extra deck monster, then we can bring in the second Goat. If they're on spells that they have to activate to summon their stuff, like Mitsurugi or Dracotail, then we bring in the Anti-Spell Fragrance. So let's say we are going guaranteed first against Dracotail. Then we are siding out our Mulcharmies because honestly, we do not care about cross-outing a Mulcharmy. The only Mulcharmy we care about is Perulia, really. That's the only one that they would get a lot of draws off of. But we have Ash in the main for Perulia. And we are siding out one Droplet. We can still keep one Droplet. If you wanted the Goat out of the side, you could take out the other Droplet. Droplet still can just be some form of interruption during your opponent's turn. So if we were siding for guaranteed going second against a deck like Dracotail, we would of course still side in the 2 Thrust. We want a 2 Dark Ruler no more, since we don't really care about like destroying their board because their monsters can special summon back from the grave, like Arthalion and Gulamel. You could put either Dark Hole or Black Goat Laughs. Black Goat Laughs really kind of shuts down their resource loop and their grind game because you can, even if they make Arthalion during your turn, you can banish Goat, call Arthalion so that they can't loop resources or bounce resources. They make Gulamel, you can call Gulamel so they can't pop a card. But honestly, we could play through the pop. 1 Harpy's Feather Duster and then our 2 Ghost Bells. We're siding out our 2 Droll and Lockbirds because they don't do anything in this matchup. Our 2 Perulia, since they again don't do anything in this matchup, at most they'd probably just draw us 1 card. Debtors, because Debtors is not really good into established boards. Woes for the same reason. A Stellar because it's awful into established boards. It is the worst normal summon you can have into established boards. And then finally, Witch of the White Forest because it is also a terrible starter into established boards, but it is still a 1 card starter. If they play through the rest of your starters like Elzette, like Sylvie, things like that. And our last card we can activate is Witch. Then we can go Witch, search Diabells, send Witch, dump Diabell Star, or dump the curse, add Philia for Diabell Star Vengeance. And as long as we have access to those 2 monsters, we are breaking their board every time. All right. So I really like where this deck is at currently right now. Like I said, 40 cards seems the most consistent way of building this deck and the best way of building this deck, whether you are playing some form of board breakers or if you're playing the hand trap version like I am. If you made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it educational. I'm going to still be playing White Forest for the foreseeable future, especially when Burst Protocol comes out. I'll be playing the Elven Notes version of the list that I have been tinkering with and made a video on in the past. You can check that out on the channel as well if you'd like to see that. And then when Maze of Muertos comes out, I'm going to be playing the new Dark Magician support. I'm going to be grinding a lot of games with Dark Magician because being able to summon my favorite spellcasters and play through Droll seems a really fun thing to do. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything that I should cover in the next video or in an upcoming video, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're there, remember to like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. That all being said, guys, gals, zombies, and YouTube catters, I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, good night.